If domestic violence has never touched your life, consider yourself lucky.
It is more common than many people realize. I never knew till I got in this business how common it is. We have police scanners in the newsroom. We hear these calls every single day. Look at this. This is from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. More than 20,000 phone calls are placed every day to domestic violence hotlines. It is an epidemic, one that experts believe is not going away. Tonight, we're looking at what happens, or rather, doesn't happen to the perpetrators. It's a sick way to feel power and control.
What becomes a slap then becomes a punch. What becomes a shove then gets a shove down the stairs.
This woman is living in a mid-state domestic violence shelter, hiding from her husband, the father of her young child.
There were many times when, after my rib was broken, and I laid there and I couldn't breathe, he wouldn't let me go to the hospital.
In every community, at every economic level, in every walk of life, there is domestic violence.
I see names come across my desk quite often, people that I know, and I can tell you, you're still surprised.
District Attorney Dave Freed has prosecuted his share of these cases. His office gets a domestic violence call every single day, yet these cases are hard to win.
Look, Alicia, I've been doing this for a long time. I can't tell you exactly why. But there's always a reason, there's always a defense.
That's especially disturbing when you hear domestic violence expert Lisa Donarski say women who kill their abusers tend to get tougher sentences than abusers who kill the women they're supposed to love.
It just seems like it's gotten more lax, and I'm not quite sure why.
Lisa says our victim's case could easily become lethal. Her husband has found where she's hiding, and he has no fear of the law. Why should he?
I don't even see sentencing. I mean, most of these guys, it seems like they get a slap on the wrist and say, don't do that.
No one I talked with blames police. They question the courts. Many advocates feel sentences, even for felonies, tend to be light. I wanted to look at how specific judges rule on domestic violence, and I found rulings on all sorts of different crimes, but not this one. For some reason, Pennsylvania does not keep track of it. And there's this.
I worry that it's not taken seriously enough. I worry that we have so many cases and they're at such a level that sometimes, you know, you'll hear the term throughout the system as something we fight back against. You hear just another DV case.
Our victim says she's been treated dismissively in court. He's never even been behind bars, and she cannot stay in this shelter forever.
I've laid out my funeral plans and my wishes, and I go to bed every night and I kiss my daughter as if I'm kissing her for the last time. You wake up every day and you wonder, is today going to be the day? Is today going to be the day that he snaps and kills me? And I do think that that is going to be how my story ends.
She's not the only woman I heard say that. Well, I talked to the head of the Pennsylvania Commission on Sentencing. He wants the law changed. He says we need to be able to see how judges rule on these cases. And District Attorney Dave Freed feels the same way. He wants that information entered into the record. Then we can hold judges accountable. Now, I want to say, please do not use this as an excuse not to get help if you are a victim. Here is the number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE. We've been reporting on the domestic violence epidemic in Pennsylvania, and we are staying on the story. A few months ago, we reported that in our state, the consequences for perpetrators are often weak. After that report aired, the calls started pouring in, and we found out a mid-state lawmaker is now stepping up with a solution so this all-too-familiar story can finally have a different ending with more perpetrators in prison.
I would be crying, and if I would cry, I would get smacked. I would be told, you're lucky, that's all you're getting.
The abuse began soon after she married her husband 5 years ago. He said it was for her own good.
He was protecting me. He wasn't protecting me. He was controlling me and everyone else around me. And
he convinced her to stop working, threatened her friends and family, said he would kill her.
He would hit me with my son on his hip. Emotional torture, financial torture, isolation, intimidation.
He's now moved out and she's trying to get a divorce, but he is stalking her, violating a protection from abuse order. He's been arrested and dragged into court 3 times, and each time, not guilty. She says the courts don't take her seriously, and advocates say she is not alone. They say something needs to be done so more perpetrators end up in prison. Well, it turns out something is changing, and we'll get to that in a moment. Officer Robert Higgins of Hamden Township says domestic violence calls are among the most dangerous for police, but mostly he fears for the victim.
Just that feeling of helplessness, that she can't do anything to get away from this guy.
He says his department gets a call every day, and when he shows up, the scenes are sadly familiar, and not just because he sees it on the job.
My mother has got a great sense of humor. If anything, she can laugh at just about anything.
He became a police officer because his own mother is a domestic abuse survivor.
She had to constantly live her life in fear.
She endured the control, the physical and mental abuse, the hopelessness. And because it was the 60s and 70s, her husband never even got arrested. Police attitudes have come a long way. There are now many arrests. But Higgins believes the courts have not moved with the times.
But unfortunately, the way things work out is that a lot of times it does turn into a very light sentence.
Cumberland County Representative Cheryl DeLozier is ready to do something about those light sentences.
The more we talk about it, the more we can help.
Before joining the state legislature, DeLozier was a certified volunteer helping domestic violence victims.
They harm them so dramatically that it can take your breath away, but it's not necessarily in the statistics to say so.
Our last report showed Pennsylvania has statistics on all sorts of crimes, but not domestic violence. It is impossible to track how judges rule in these cases. Well, Representative DeLozier saw our story. She has now decided to introduce a statewide bill to change that. If it passes, victims in Pennsylvania could have a much better chance for justice.
Sad, broken-hearted, because I trusted him with my life.
Our victim is not only broken-hearted, she is broke. He emptied their bank accounts. She barely has the money to patch the holes and fix the broken doors that remind her he was there, and he is still out there. Now, one way to go about this would be for police to file the usual charge of, say, aggravated assault or attempted homicide, but then also indicate on the charging papers this is domestic violence. Then, as the case goes forward, we can track how judges rule.